It's green for go. They're racing.
He says go.
He says ta-da.
And Tiger Tara roars away from them on the home turn.
Here comes another big boil over.
Equine athleticism at its best. The king is in the castle once more.
This is in one race. The rest are almost in another post.
She is a star with a capital S. It's going to be a triple treat, a miracle three-peat. Ladies and gentlemen, you have witnessed history here at Menangle. What about that?
It's getting right up on the sprint lane and it's going to bolt in.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sunday Session. My name is Greg Hayes. This podcast is all about harness racing in New South Wales. So if that's what you're into, then you've tuned into the right show. It's been a huge week for harness racing and the Carnival is just starting to heat up. Got to Newcastle on Friday night for the running of the Newcastle Mile. And how good was Leap to Fame? I've said it before and I'll say it again. He's one of the reasons I decided to put my toe back into the water when it comes to the harness racing media. When you sit back and watch horses like him, it's great to talk to people around horses like Leap to Fame, and it's great to be talking about him. He continues to dominate his races. I will say the Miracle Mile will be a huge step up in class in comparison to the Newcastle Mile. His lack of high speed at the start is magnified in sprint races, and that may bring him undone in a fortnight, but he is still one special horse. I think back to a horse like Black's a Fake. He wasn't blessed with brilliant gate speed. In saying that, he probably had a little bit more than Leap to Fame, and he could never win a Miracle Mile. He had 4 cracks, even raced in one at Harold Park. He finished second on 2 occasions. While those super tough horses might get the lead over a staying trip, they just don't get afforded the same favours in sprint races. I interviewed owner Kevin Seymour on Friday night, and he said he isn't ready to call him a champion until he wins the Miracle Mile. I'm probably in the same boat as Kevin. If he wins the Miracle Mile, he is an undisputed champion of our sport. He will dominate harness racing in this part of the world until he's retired. I did ask Kevin off camera about a trip to America, and he did say it would be something he would consider, but it would have to be worthwhile and well planned. Now, interesting comments, and time will only tell if they do look to go to the USA with him. Then we turn our attention to last night at Club Menangle with the running of the Paleface Adios. Better Be the Best continued his march back towards the top of the charts. Nathan Turnbull has adopted this aggressive style with him, and the barrier draw is going to dictate whether he can be driven the same way next Saturday night. If Captain's Knock and Frankie Ferocious draw inside him, there could be some real fireworks in the first 400 metres. If they eventuated, then Don't Stop Dreaming simply looks to have too much speed for its rivals. Rolled to the front at Menangle on Saturday night and toyed with them. One thing Mark Purdon is arrogant, but looked it when he had a look across at his rivals at the top of the straight and clicked him into overdrive. It was something very special. He's a really fast horse that's going to take him a long way in feature races, that speed that he's got. He ran a cracker behind Leap to Fame in the Hunter Cup when he got unbalanced on the home turn. And for mine, he's the one to beat next week. I don't think the barrier draw is going to worry him too much either. If you missed it, the final field for the Chariots is Better Be the Best, Captain Hammerhead, Captain's Knock, Don't Stop Dreaming, Frankie Ferocious, It's Merlin, Our Vinny, Rock and Roll Hammer, Sooner the Better, and Sure Thing Captain, Doug's Platter First Emergency, and Earl of Pembroke the Second. Who's on the show today? Well, Mark Purdon has had great success in Sydney in the past, especially with 4-year-olds in races like the Chariots and Miracle Mile. He has another one that is out of the box in this Don't Stop Dreaming, and I thought it would be timely that we caught up with him today. So Mark Purdon's going to join me on the podcast. And I also thought it was time to speak with my old sparring partner, Adam Hamilton, from In the Gig again. Adam speaks with all of the leading trainers across the country, and I thought with the 2 sprints coming up next week, it might be worth finding out which Victorians we're going to see next weekend. Also want to get his thoughts on Don't Stop Dreaming and Barry Purdon's runners in the Chariots of Fire as well. It's Merlin and Sooner the Better. I'll run through all the races from Menangle in the Menangle Express. Mr. T will be back. He tipped another winner this week and both of mine ran second, so he has closed the gap. I'll wrap up another week of fantasy harness racing as well, so there is plenty to get through on the podcast today. First up, it's Adam Hamilton. Well, the Carnival of Miracles well and truly underway. The Chariots of Fire will be next Saturday night. Miracle Mile now only 2 weeks away. And I thought it'd be the right time to get Adam Hamilton onto the podcast just to have a chat to him about what's going on, what horses are we going to see, and what he makes of Mark Purdon and Barry Purdon being back in Sydney. I saw him write an article only a few weeks ago on that issue, and he's joining me to have a chat. Morning, Adam. How are you?
Yeah, great, Hazy. mate, how can I not be? How can anyone who's got a whiff of harness racing passion in them not be like a kid in a candy shop at the moment? It's all sitting there in front of us for these magnificent next few weeks, isn't it?
It is, and I read that article you wrote about the Purdons being back, and they are such an important part of the carnival. They just give it the depth, the extra dimension to make it a really special one.
They're class acts as people. They're both Hall of Famers in Barry and Mark, and we know now, not to be respectful, they train in partnership. So Barry with Scotty Phelan, a really key part of it. Mark with his son Nathan. But those names, Mark and Barry Purdon, they're part of the fabric of Australian harness racing, and in no bigger way than being part of the fabric of the Chariots of Fire and Miracle Mile. I mean, they've won. Well, Barry's won 5 Miracle Miles with great horses, gone back to back with Chokin and Holmes DG, and won it with Christopher Vance. Mark's won 2 Miracle Miles, both of them with 4-year-olds, which we'll talk about the significance of that soon. And they've been massive players in the Chariots of Fire. I think Mark's won a couple of those, and Barry's won 4 of those. Barry's a long time ago, obviously, but to your point, they're just massive. They've just really added another dimension to this, and they've raised the bar of interest in this Carnival of Miracles over in New Zealand to levels that probably haven't been experienced for the past decade or so. And I think that's a great thing for harness racing in this part of the world.
And because we've got such a good one in Leap to Fame, it becomes nearly an us versus them. Not that it's a competition, but there's a little bit of that rivalry that the Aussies can match it with the Kiwis.
Yeah, and we needed some new rivals coming through for him. I'm not saying that he's unbeatable. He has been beaten. Swayze's beaten him, and he got beaten in a Victoria Cup. But he largely looks to have the measure of the horses that he's been racing, particularly with no Swayze in action at the moment. So there's 2 ways of looking at this. Grant Dixon was probably entitled to think horse of a lifetime. You know, I might get 18 months where I can just own the Grand Circuit. Well, he's had a few months, but these 4-year-olds are going to have something to say about this, aren't they, Greg? It's an incredibly strong and exciting crop of 4-year-olds, and Grant Dixon will be at home in Tamborine. Well, he'll probably be at Albion Park, to be honest, next Saturday night, but his eyes will be glued to the Chariots of Fire, and that's not being disrespectful to the 2 qualifying sprints we'll talk about soon, but I think it's fair to say right here, right now, that his biggest dangers on face value look to be the 4-year-olds that will come out of the Chariot.
Well, let's have a chat about Don't Stop Dreaming, because he was super in the Hunter Cup. He then comes to Sydney and just blows them away in the Hondo Grattan, and then last night competes. And Mark Purdon's not an arrogant man, but that was an arrogant victory. He looks sideways, and then the horse just explodes and finds another gear.
And then you see the last quarter goes up in 25-7, and you know, someone's got to give Mark arm massages after the race because he's holding the horse so hard over the last 400 metres. So it's, he's just so fast, and he's such an exciting horse. And, you know, I mean, I don't have to walk you through the mega stars that Mark's had over the years, but I just get the impression talking to him that he legitimately feels this horse has got the sort of potential to be up there with the greats that he's had. You know, he's sort of got Chokin and who he was involved with, obviously, but, you know, in his own right, Lazarus is a benchmark. I think he always feels that had it not been for injury, that Vincent would have been right there as well. And I've heard enough from Mark and seen enough in his body language to say that all the signs are there that this horse could be right up with him if he can hold him together over the next 18 months or 2 years.
So he's won, Miracle Miles before, as you said, with Spankerman, Have Faith in Me. Is this bloke...
Both 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
Both 4-year-olds.
So is this his next Miracle Mile winner? Because, you know, he looks to have all the tools that you need to win a big one like that.
Yeah, look, he has got all the tools. He's good off the gate. He's not blazing off the gate. which is probably, I mean, if you could build a prototype horse for a Miracle Mile, you'd probably have a little bit more early gate speed than him. But it's not the be all and end all. He's got everything else going for him. So let's talk more broadly about the 4-year-olds and the challenges facing Leap to Fame in this race. Who is the benchmark? So, just earlier this morning was sort of jotting down some pros and cons for Leap to Fame. The biggest pro is that he's the only horse that's going to get the 2-week break. And I think that's huge, Hazy. He's got 15 days. He was back home at lunchtime on Saturday in his own barn. He gets to do all his preparation there. He gets to sort of rest and watch all the others go to war in 148 or, around that next Saturday night. All of his rivals he'll take on will be in action next Saturday night. So that's a big advantage for him. The downside for him is the retention barn. And it's the same for all horses, but he's a stallion who lives in a paddock. So, in a retention barn, he didn't enjoy it before the Eureka. He's won, we know he's been down there and won big races, but I still think it's a little negative for a stallion like him. And then the other thing is the mile. It's not his best distance. He's a supreme stayer. The further they go, he's more like a Black Fake who couldn't win a Miracle Mile or a Lazarus who couldn't win a Miracle Mile. The further they go, they just become nigh on unbeatable. But over a mile, it brings him back to the others. And his greatest asset is his strength, not his high speed. So there's some of the things with Leap to Fame, but I do think that 2-week advantage is a big thing. And then there's this batch of 4-year-olds coming through in the Chariots of Fire form. The last 8 Chariots winners have either won or been placed in a Miracle Mile. But it's different this year, isn't it? Only that 1-week break for the Chariots horses, which I think it's going to make it harder for these 4-year-olds, Hazy, to back up a week later.
Well, especially the Barry Purdon 2, because they obviously had to go last night. They'll go next week, and then if they get the spot in the Miracle Mile, that's 3 weeks in a row, which is a big ask.
Yeah, it certainly is, and they went quick times last night, didn't they? Particularly Merlin, or It's Merlin as he races with over here. I thought he was just wonderful. I mean, you'd have to be the hardest judge on earth to say that he was at all disappointing. I mean, if you backed him, you might be a touch disappointed, but 3 wide, not working overly hard, but still 3 wide for what the first 600 or 700 metres. Got outside of a serious horse who was running serious times in Better Be the Best, and he just wouldn't lay down. I mean, he was still as strong as the winner on the line, it looked to me. So, and the horses always improve, particularly the Kiwis, for one look at Menangle. So, yeah, you couldn't be disappointed with him. I think he's a tremendous chance with his gate speed. He's got electric gate speed if he can get a decent draw, Merlin. So, but yeah, look, I think it's a real factor that the 4-year-olds are going to have to back up a week later rather than having, that what I think has been an advantage to them of the 2-week gap in the past, Hazy.
Yeah. In terms of horses from outside that group of 4-year-olds that could challenge Leap to Fame, are we going to see any imports from interstate that can challenge him? Obviously, there's nothing in Queensland that can. Are the Victorians going to come up in mass, or will there only be a handful that will take him on?
They won't come up in mass because the bar's just set so high, and we just, few of our better horses are either sidelined or not in action. And, when I say that, it's Act Now Victoria Cup winner. They're collecting semen from him, so he's going through a bit of a holding pattern phase and not racing at the moment. Honolulu Bay, well, he hasn't raced for a long time, but he's only just on his way back. So who from Victoria looks like coming? Better Eclipse. We know how good he is. I mean, he was tremendous in the Dominion final and the Hunter Cup. He loves Menangle, so he's going to be very hard to beat in a qualifier and very competitive in a Miracle Mile. Mac Dan, I mean, he's just a little pro. I'd be surprised well, he can't win a Miracle Mile, I don't think, but he can get into it because he's got that gate speed, and he'll be a big factor in one of the sprints next week. 2-time Newcastle Mile winner, little more than track work for him the other night. Winning at Geelong, we'll chat more about the fallout from Geelong in a moment. But so the one X factor, and we'll probably know, well, we might not know until the fields come out, is will Ladies in Red be there? Would that be sensational? And I nearly fell off my chair the other night when it can be a little hard to get hold of Emma Stewart, but A, she answered the phone, and B, she volunteered to me that they were genuinely considering running Ladies in Red in one of the qualifying sprints. So she would just add another dimension because she's as good a mare as I've ever seen in Australian harness racing in my 30 years covering it. She's right there with the tailor-made Lombos and any of them, Hazy.
And they wouldn't have any fear about coming to Menangle. They've been so often before and they've had success, so they know what it takes to win big races.
Yeah, and she's been up there before. I mean, she's travelled a bit now. Like she's only taken on the boys once in her career, and it was even a somewhat restricted. It was a Rising Sun 3 and 4 year olds, which was in middle of 2022, and she romped in that. She found the front, romped in. Interestingly, part of the beaten brigade was a then 3-year-old Leap to Fame. So he's obviously got a lot better since. She's had a lot of issues. I mean, the negative on her going up next week is she hasn't raced since November. She's had a couple of trials, and if you have a look at her last preparation, she got beaten first up and then got better with each run. So, that's the conundrum they've got, isn't it? Like there's nowhere to hide when you're in a qualifying sprint for the Miracle Mile next week. So big decision for them, but, selfishly from a harness fan, God, I'd love to see her in one of those sprints. I've got no doubt that I'm not going to say she's as good as Leap to Fame, but I've got no doubt she's as good as any other pacer going for the Miracle Mile, Ladies in Red. Any boy.
Yeah. Well, she is different grade. Like she is something very, very special. Mate, what was the story with Catch a Wave? Because obviously the injury's not as bad as they first thought it could have been.
No, so I'll sort of just give you a quick chronological version. So after the race, Kate Gaff knew that, during the race, she felt something wasn't right. After 300 metres, he just put in a couple of wrong steps and then she couldn't steer him. And you can see coming off the back straight, he's like a crab. He's all over the joint. So there was that element of just trying to nurse him through the race, wondering if he just wasn't comfortable on the night. Afterwards, he was a little bit lame. About 20 minutes after the race, he was so lame, he just couldn't put his foot on the ground. And he took 2 steps and the vet said, don't let him walk anywhere. We'll get some help. Let's get him on the float. And they felt at that stage they medicated him, got him back to Andy and Kate Gaff's place. And bizarrely, when he got back there, he seemed a bit better, but he'd been medicated with painkillers, so you can't get a line. Saturday morning, of course, Andy and Kate, first thing they do, run out and see him. There he is with a swollen leg but a compression bandage on. He's pawing the ground with the leg, and they're like, this is very strange because the medication is surely worn off by that stage. So then they get him along to the vets, go right over him. I mean, they're virtually convinced that he's got some sort of fracture because he was so lame, 4 out of 5 lame, which any trainer will tell you is extreme. And then they go right over him sort of late morning yesterday. Andy drove him about an hour away from their place. Scans, X-rays, you name it, all they find, to their great relief, is a corn in one of his hooves, which they do a procedure on, dig it all out, clean it up, bandage him, send him home. And they said, you can start again in 2 weeks, you'll be good as gold. So they feel like they've dodged the greatest bullet of all time. I can tell you they were virtually resigned to the fact that we wouldn't see him for the best part of a year, Hazy.
So is there anything now, if they bring, if he has his 2 weeks off and comes back, is there anything, in the next couple of months?
This is a dilemma, isn't it? Yeah. So He won't go to any of the. He won't go to New Zealand or WA slot races. That you can take that to the bank. So I think it's probably more likely now that there is nothing for him. Queensland Winter would be the logical thing to set him for now. Not something Andy goes too often, but what else do you do with a horse like him if you've missed the Miracle Mile and then there's nothing for him? So, yeah, I think definitely no slot races. I think even though it sounds like he could be racing again in 3 or 4 weeks, I think it's more likely that he'll have a little bit of a break now, not a spell as such, but a little bit of a break, and then they'll bring him back and target Queensland Winter, where there's some serious coin up for grabs. And well, what else are they going to do with him? I mean, you can't wait again until the Victoria Cup in October. You've got to go for something before then.
Mate, question without notice, and it's on the 3-year-old. Sergeant Lou we saw last week in Sydney. He won the Simpson, so he goes straight through to the Derby. He looks like a really special horse to me.
Yeah, look, he is, and he's a great example of wonderful horsemanship from Paul and Kari, because he was a work in progress 2-year-old, and you could see the potential there. But you probably couldn't have predicted the meteoric rise we've seen this season. But talk about a 3-year-old that's got it all. I mean, we're so used to the sexiest 3-year-olds in Victoria being Emma and Clayton's, basically, aren't we? But we've got a really, really serious 3-year-old who's not from their team and a Victorian benchmark at the moment. So, look, I just think lovely horse, and I think it's really refreshing, and they're just great people. Like, they've been soul-of-the-earth harness people for the whole time I've been in the game, and these are the stories you love, aren't they, when they get a chance to, climb some of the greatest heights in the sport, and it looks like they got the horse to do it. Will
we see you up in Sydney for the carnival?
Mate, I'm hoping. It's a very rare Miracle Mile that I'm not at. I don't think I've missed. I think I missed the rerunning after the storm of King of Swing, and then I had one of my best mates' weddings last year, which tore my heart out, and I won't even tell you how it tore my wife Kirby's heart out, given she's Kate Gaff's sister, that we weren't at Menangle to watch Catch a Wave win it. But 50-50 at this stage. On the work front, I've got a lot happening in New Zealand over the next few weeks, Hazy. But if there's any possible way I can juggle the agenda to get there, the harness, every harness bone in my body says I've got to be at Menangle on March 9, mate.
Well, mate, it's great to catch up with you and find out what's going on and your thoughts on everything. Mate, thank you for doing that, and I'll speak with you again soon.
Yeah, absolute pleasure, mate. Keep up the great work, and always happy to have a chat with you. And I guess the last message is pretty simple. Get to Menangle over the next couple of weeks if you can, or really immerse yourself in it, because the sort of resurgence of harness racing is really happening off the back of the horses we've got at the moment, Hazy.
Third quarter, 29-2. Second is line up. Third on the outside as they swing in as Let's Rock and Roll and Magician. But as they straighten up, Don't Stop Dreaming, the leader. Just lugged up the track a shade. There's a run for Magician. Lineup's trying to stay on. And getting home inside of those is Expensive Ego. But the leader, Don't Stop Dreaming, he's barely flinched on it. And Don't Stop Dreaming is going to go home and beat Magician. Big run lineup third. And then came Let's Rock and Roll, Expensive Ego, Smithy's Terror.
Well, it might have been just a support race on the program last night, but Don't Stop Dreaming really made a statement with an impressive display, but that high speed that he's got. Mark Purdon is the trainer, and Mark's joining me to have a chat. Well, Mark, congratulations on the win last night.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, I was very impressed with him.
He's got some very, very high speed. I think I've just interviewed Adam Hamilton for the podcast this morning, and I said, Mark Purdon is not an arrogant man, but that was a very arrogant win. You just had a glance over to your right and asked the horse to extend, and he found that 25.7 speed. He's very special.
Yes, yeah. Pretty versatile little horse, but he's talented, and he's got that high speed, Greg.
Is that the key to being a good horse, do you think, that having that X-factor speed?
Oh yes, yeah. The great ones are just all-rounders. They've got it all, but and I'd put them in that great category.
Well, take us through his campaign here in Australia this time in, because obviously we saw him in the Hunter Cup and he seemed to get a little bit rough on the home turn, but still made up ground on Leap to Fame. You must have been happy with that run.
Yeah, well, that was sort of, we just sort of wondered where he was quite at, and a run like that, you knew that he's going to be a pretty special horse.
So did you have the plan after or before that race? Did you have the plan that you were going to come to Sydney and concentrate on a race like the Chariots of Fire?
Yes, yeah. Well, the initial plan when we were going to Melbourne was to take on the Bonanza, but with losing Akuta through the week, we had a change of plan and thought, well, we can, we can take on the Hunter Cup, and then we still have two options to contest the Chariot Heat. So it was a change of plan, but it worked out well.
And then he came up for Sydney for the Hondo Grattan, and Jack Callaghan took the drive, and he was super impressive that night as well.
Yes, he was, Greg, and Jack handled him perfectly and gave him a lovely trip and capitalised on that. But he showed that high speed again.
Now, you've got a very good record with 4-year-olds in the Miracle Mile. Spank them and have faith in me in recent times. I know you don't like comparing horses, but where does this bloke sit compared to horses, the top horses you've had over the years?
Well, I think he'd be up with those two, Greg, and he's a very good 2-year-old, a good 3-year-old, and he's going on to be a good 4-year-old. So, put him up with those horses. He's sort of the top of his age group bracket each year.
Is he the sort of horse that we get into a Chariots next week, there's loads of speed, Frankie Ferocious, Captain's Knock, Better Be the Best, and then you've got the other Kiwis in It's Merlin, Sooner the Better, that if there's speed on and you can just let him find his feet, that we could see something special and race his way into a Miracle Mile?
Yeah, quite possibly, Greg. I think, it's a very, very good field, and there's a number of winning chances there. So I think a lot will come down to the draw, but he's certainly in the mix, and given the right run, they'll know he's there.
Are Barry's two the hardest to beat? Barry and Scott's two of It's Merlin and Sooner the Better. You'd obviously know them very well, having watched all of them, watched them race in New Zealand.
Yes, yeah, you'd have to have a lot of respect for Nathan Turnbull's horse after last night. I thought he was very impressive, won a good time. There's nothing good enough to sort of come off the pace and beat him. So you'd have to respect him. And Justin Grimson's horse, he was very impressive in Melbourne, winning the Bonanza.
Yeah.
So not just Brother Barry. I think there's other serious chances there.
And if Don't Stop Dreaming was successful in the Chariots, does the Miracle Mile, is that you just accept that, or would you want to wait and see how the horse came through? What would be the plan there?
Look, I think while we're here, Greg, and he's thriving on the racing, it's not hurting him, and providing he sort of comes through well, we'd accept an invitation to start in the mile. Sure.
And is there anything, have you got anything coming, any more horses coming over for races like the Derby or anything like that?
We've got a 3-year-old coming over. He gets here this afternoon, so he'll contest the Derby heats next week.
We Walk by Faith. Be interesting to see whether they put a prefix on his name. So, and you've got an opinion of him?
Yes, yeah, he ran second in their Science Stakes final at home. He was bought in Australia. Nathan had purchased him, I think, in Victoria, and he's owned by Dennis Dunford, who raced Have Faith in Me that won the mile. So, he's quite a nice little horse.
I haven't spoken to you in a while. Watching the progeny of Lazarus now hit the track, does that give you a bit of a buzz sitting there and thinking and saying, oh, geez, I had a lot to do with the success of that horse in his career?
Oh, yes, it does. You look forward to them. And we went out and purchased a couple the first year, just trying to help him. And one colt I really liked, but he was close to racing, and he went a little bit sore, but he just had bone chips and a hock, so we've had them removed, and he won't start now till probably later this year. But he was he seemed a very nice colt, and we had a filly. She's been placed on numerous occasions, but hasn't quite broken through to win one yet.
And what about training with Nathan? Obviously, it's not new, but how are you enjoying that?
I'm enjoying it very much because I've taken a step back a little bit, Greg, but and he's taken more of the pressure, so I'm enjoying life more.
And just finally, the New Zealand sales in the last couple of weeks, were you active there?
Yes, we were. Nathan and I were both there and looking at lots together and purchasing, so we ended up with 16 lots, so it's a good figure to bring to the barn after they're broken in and that, and you sort of need them with some of the older ones that are moving on.
Well, mate, all the best of luck next week in the Chariots of Fire. Don't Stop Dreaming does look a very special horse. I think you're going to take a lot of beating next week. I don't think the barrier draw matters with him, but all the best of luck.
Thanks very much, Greg.
Time for the Menangle Express as I try and identify some future winners. We start with race 1. The favourite was Brooklyn Bridge at $1.90, heavily supported late in betting. The first race was over the 2,300 metres. Brooklyn Bridge was driven aggressively off the arm, as was the Victorian Our Vincent Can Go, with both crossing Major on the inside. They went into Indian File, as is the norm over the longer trip. Brooklyn Bridge was in front of Our Vincent Can Go, Major, Dark Terror, Sir Richard Lee, Last Tango in Heaven, Our Ebony and Ivory and Unfazed. The lead time was slow at 50.8, and then the first two quarters weren't much quicker. 30.3, 30.4. As they moved into the back straight, Last Tango in Heaven came away from the inside. That forced the hand of Dark Terror and Major, who came away from the inside to avoid the pocket. This meant Major was leading up the outside line. Cam Hart put his foot on the accelerator through the third quarter, 27-1, never in any real danger, 26 seconds up the straight. Major battled strongly on the outside in the fast last quarter, while Our Vincent Can Go did the same. Everything else was gassed. Its Ebony and Ivory was okay late once it got into the clear, but was still beaten 20 metres. Race number 2, the favourite was I'm in Trouble at $4.20 for the Inform Grimer stable. Again, over the longer trip, there was the speed. Porter Prince crossed from out wide. I'm in Trouble was beaten for early speed, but was happy to let Porter Prince go and then come off the inside for the retake. Into Indian File, it was I'm in Trouble, Porter Prince, Catalpa Rescue, Western Stride, Joni N, Chevron Art, Major Perry, Sahara Sirocco and Double Encounter. Lead time 50.4. Then Grimer was able to walk through the first quarter in 30.3. Double Encounter came away from the inside at the tail of the field, and that forced Joni N and Chevron Art to come away from the marker pegs. So the running line was Joni N, Chevron Art, Double Encounter and Sahara Sirocco. 29 through the second quarter, and then when they got to the cages, I'm in Trouble took off, set up a handy lead. Catalpa Rescue was travelling and kept hitting Josh Gallagher on Porter Prince in the head. While it was being held up, I'm in Trouble set up a race-winning lead. 27-4 through the third quarter, up the straight in 27. Catalpa Rescue got into the clear at the top of the straight. Major Perry followed it through, and Western Stride stuck to the inside. Those out wide on the track lost ground when the sprint went on. Easy win for I'm in Trouble. Catalpa Rescue was second. Margin unfair. Western Stride was third. Major Perry showed his run last week should be forgotten. And Double Encounter is getting back into grade where he can be soon winning. So make sure you keep following him. Race number 3 was a hit out for some of next week's Chariots of Fire runners, including the two favourites, Sooner the Better at 2.30, Cousin Vinny at 2.40. There was speed off the gate from Sooner the Better, and it was able to cross down before they got to the post the first time. Cousin Vinny took the run behind the leader, and they quickly settled into Indian Fire with Don Hugo following the first two, Raka Dan Neptune and Carlo Gambino. As they moved around the bottom turn, Lose Dream started the running line with Dangerous jumping onto its back. First quarter was 26-7, but they were able to back it off through the second quarter. They went 29-9. Lose Dream ensured the speed went back on through the third quarter, 27-9, turning for home. Sooner the Better kicked away, looked to be travelling okay. Cousin Vinny came to the outside and Don Hugo looked to take a little while to warm up as he looked for a run, one off the pegs. Cousin Vinny left enough room for Don Hugo and he powered late to grab Sooner the Better, who paddled the last 80. Cousin Vinny held on for third. Dangerous just missed the placings. It isn't the first time we've seen a Kiwi driven off the arm and be found wanting late. The racing over the Tasman a lot less aggressive in the early stages. Strangely enough, he proved in the Hondo Grattan he's got the speed to be a serious threat in the Chariots. He just can't be driven for that early speed. 27-1 final quarter. The mile was 151.6. Behind the place getters, Carlo Gambino was good, who was up in grade, hit the line solidly. Lou's Dream can be winning in a race where he doesn't have to do all the work. Race number 4, the fave was Whisper a Secret at $2.40. There was good early speed from My Ultimate Snowy, who was able to scoot across and take the lead off Little Louie. Tuppence was 3 pegs, Shades of Heaven 4 pegs. The running line was Blazing Shannon, Whisper a Secret, Our Uncle Jim, Rocker Coco, and Celestial Gossip. The speed was on early, 26.1, but they backed it off to 29.7 through the second, 28.9 to the final turn, and My Ultimate Snowy looked to be travelling okay. Blazing Shannon was under pressure. Whisper a Secret pulled around it. That made room for Tuppence, and it was off the inside and eased around the field to get to the very outside. Little Louie got around the wheel of My Ultimate Snowy and looked to be a winning chance, but Whisper a Secret had full momentum down the outside, held off a late finish from Tuppence, who keeps getting mentions in this segment. Little Louie had its chance. My Ultimate Snowy just had too much petrol taken out of it in the early stages. Rocker Coco got rough turning into the straight, but it got it all together late and was okay to the line. Race number 5 was the Paleface Adios Stakes, and the favourite was the Kiwi It's Merlin at $1.90. When the gate left the field, a 4-real-life gallop for a few strides, and it lost momentum. Better Be the Best, driven aggressively as promised by Nathan Turnbull, drive him like you stole him, and take the sting out of the rivals. That's the best thing Nathan can do. He got to the pegs quickly. Doug's Platter got down to the running line quickly. There was a couple caught out wide. Sure Thing Captain and It's Merlin. They progressed forward, but it took It's Merlin half the journey to work to the spot outside the leader. Pegs was Better Be the Best, Rock and Roll Hammer, Captain Hammerhead, Mr. Robin Hood and Earl of Pembroke. Running line was It's Merlin, Sure Thing Captain, Doug's Platter, Artie's Flash, and For Real Life settled last. 26.6, then 29 meant 55.6 first half. As soon as It's Merlin got to the chair, Turnbull was again off and running, and they went 27.6 through the third quarter. Turning for home, For Real Life made its dash from the tail of the field. Sure Thing Captain tipped out of the 1-1, and It's Merlin was bravely holding its spot in the chair, but Better Be the Best kept going to the line to win without too many issues. 26.6 up the straight, 149.8 overall. Not sure he gets the lead next week without an arm wrestle, so that might make it interesting. It's Merlin was brave in the straight after doing so much work. Sure Thing Captain was good. Rock and Roll Hammer wanted to get its head on the side and may have cost it third. Captain Hammerhead didn't get a lot of room late. Can't see them beating Don't Stop Dreaming next week. A lot of speed in the race now, and I'm looking for the fast horses coming from off the speed in the Chariots. Race 6, Don't Stop Dreaming, was the favourite at $1.10. There were a few who wanted to get forward here and find the markers. Ideal Escape showed speed before Expensive Ego crossed it. And then Magician kept coming forward and it rolled to the top before it released the fave, Don't Stop Dreaming. So in order on the pegs, it was Don't Stop Dreaming, Magician, Expensive Ego, Ideal Escape, Tis a Sizzler, Boots Electric, Smithy's Terror, Let's Rock, Let's Roll, and Lineup. Lead time 49.6, followed by Pedestrian Quarters of 30 and 31.4. Lineup made the move to start the running line, and Let's Rock, Let's Roll and Smithy's Terror jumped into the running line as well. 29.2 was the third quarter, and then once they got to the top of the straight, it became a dash home. Don't Stop Dreaming grew wings up the straight, untouched to run a final quarter in 25.6. Magician battled on up the straight. Lineup was super brave after being forced to do a lot of work outside the winner. Ideal Escape was making up ground on those around it in the straight, which was impressive with the speed they were going, and it's worth following. The winner is super impressive and looks the one to beat in the Chariots. Race 7 was the Standing Start Trot. The favourite was Victory Hill at $4.20. On Advice and Vic Sun galloped away. There were a few that wanted to get forward early. Victory Hill worked to the front before releasing Sunny G, and then Scruffy Doolan was able to roll past it, and that all happened in the first 600 metres of the race. 53.4 was the lead time. They settled down with Scruffy Doolan in front of Sunny G, Victory Hill, A Fair to Cover, The Best Bourbon, On Advice, Van Sank, Majestic Trio and Vic Sun. 30.5 was the first quarter, and it was the Best Bourbon who came away from the inside and started the running line. So it was the Best Bourbon, On Advice and Van Sank. Majestic Trio was pushed out 3 wide and never got around them. 29.9 through the second quarter, and then Scruffy Doolan tried to slip away. 27.8 through the third quarter. It was a sizable lead. Victory Hill had to wait until the Best Bourbon dropped away to get into the clear, and then the question was, could it reel in Scruffy Doolan? 28.5 up the straight. Victory Hill got there in the shadows of the post. Scruffy Doolan held on for second. A Fair to Cover got away from them pegs in the straight and got home well for third. On Advice and Van Sank were okay late, but expected more from Van Sank. Think Van Sank will appreciate getting back to the mobile. Race 8, the short price favourite was I'll Have a Bubbles, and there was a lot of speed early with Little Bliss charging off the arm to cross Meet Me at the Beach before handing over to I'll Have a Bubbles, and they quickly went into single file. So I'll Have a Bubbles, Little Bliss, Meet Me at the Beach, Soho Rhapsody, Our Southern Star, Heavenly Holly and Magic Moment, 26.9 and then 30.1, which was fast enough for those behind the short price favourite. Grimer came away from the inside at the cages with Meet Me at the Beach, which was a little bit surprising because by the time they swung into the straight, she was gone. Soho Rhapsody pushed through on the pegs in the spot that Meet Me at the Beach left and then shifted into the clear at the top of the straight to chase out after the fave, who'd put a big gap on them. Heavenly Holly went to the outside and flew home down the outside. Soho Rhapsody just held on for second, but Heavenly Holly was very good in third. Little Bliss was fourth after blasting off the gate, and she can win with that gate speed in weaker grade. Best win of the night, Don't Stop Dreaming, Simply Arrogant. Purdon had a lap full of horse in the straight, broke 26 seconds up for the final quarter. Very special horse. He's going places. Best beaten performance of the night. It's Merlin. Got caught outside the leader in the Paleface Adios. It took it half the race to get around to the chair. It'll benefit from a good draw in the Chariots of Fire. And drive of the night. Not much between Luke McCarthy on Don Hugo and Trent Dawson on Whisper a Secret. I'll go with Trent Dawson because he dropped him into a perfect spot from a middle draw, gave him every chance, but Luke's on Don Hugo was very, very good too.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Winning.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Winner!
That was legitness.
To that I say, all right. Wow, winning.
Bam! Just like that. That's all there is to it, Dustin. That's all there is to it. A winner! Just like that.
And the winner is...
Well, it's getting very close in the tipping challenge. Mr. T has closed the gap big time. I'm minus $66. He's minus $69. We give 2 tips each week and put $10 on them on the New South Wales tote. He got the one winner this week at Bathurst with Troza winning the last race. My 2 tips ran second. Mr. T, his 2 were at Bathurst. Surprise, surprise. Race 6, number 9, Soho Money Rider for visiting trainer Michael Stanley. Has got the awkward draw to contend with, but does have strong recent form in Victoria. Did win 2 at Bendigo in late December, early January. So race 6, number 9, Soho Money Rider. And his other one is in race 9, number 2, Judith Gwenda. Still a maiden after 12 starts, but has put the writing on the wall that a win's just around the corner. 6 placings to date. Mr. T thinks Wednesday is the night for Judith Gwenda. That's race 9, number 2. My 2 this week on Tuesday, race 7, number 7, Maria Alagonda. My good mate Freddie Hastings has a share in this one, and I think she'll take some beating. Was super impressive in a recent trial and wasn't let down and looks to have very high speed. So that is race 7, number 7, Maria Alagonda. And then race 8, number 9, Argent Peak. Seaton Grimer is winning a lot of races at the moment. This horse won at Newcastle on Friday night. I like Seaton's aggressive approach. Expect it to take a lot of beating on Tuesday. That's race 8, number 9, Argent Peak. Fantasy update. Champo 71 still leads with a margin now back to 140 points. So Champo 71 is on 9,997. Mays is on 9,857. And Manning 1990 is third with 9,804. My team, I'm running 81st with 8,576. Round 13 was won by Boilover with 936 points in front of Mays on 928 and Teddy on 916. Interesting next week because you wouldn't think anyone's going to dominate Saturday night with all the big races, but the triple points might come in handy. So who do you trade into your team? And importantly, who do you make captain? Big decision coming up this week. That just about wraps up another week and another podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. Next week will be different because we have a special podcast coming from the barrier draw of the Miracle Mile. So make sure you stay tuned for that one. And I'm sure Harness Racing New South Wales will have all the details about that sometime during the week. Big thank you to my guests, Adam Hamilton and Mark Purdon. Have a great week. I'll be trackside at the Chariots next week doing some trackside interviews for social media channels as well. I'll catch you then. Bye for now.